I think we're live. Jason. What's
Woohoo!
happening now is happening now.
I'm alive.
So,
Are
Jason,
we in Facebook land as well as YouTube? Are
well,
we in YouTube alone? What do we need to tell our esteemed viewers?
that's an excellent question.
I'm
Uh,
known for them.
I'm feeling like an old right now
Oh Lord.
because the internet tells me how to set up Facebook streaming, but then the internet says, "Nope." Oh, here we go. Oh, we're live. We're
Boom!
live. What's happening now
Yes.
is happening now.
In the face place?
In the face place.
Oh gosh, I haven't been in the face place in a long time.
Yeah, there we go. So, hi, Jason.
Hi, Joshua. Congratulations on solving a problem of your own doing.
Thank you. I'm really excited. This whole series of us bringing on, the producers that we work with directly, or in some cases where we've sourced a cask, like with our Ardmore. Simon Brooking being so kind to come on, even though we didn't buy the cask from them. He was kind to come on and talk about Ardmore. And I'm really excited to bring Leigh and Bree on here from Backwoods. How long have you known them now?
12 years, 20,
12,
I think. I think
yeah.
Leigh and I attended school together.
Checks out.
So I'm only saying that so I can see them laughing in the green room. So bring them in. Let's say hello to them.
All right, let's do that. Here we go. Ta-da!
Hello, my old school friend.
Hello. Haven't seen you since school. You haven't changed a bit.
To be fair, I was the teacher. Well, listen, you two. When we were emailing, maybe some months ago, we'd said in the future we need to do some day drinking together because our 8 p.m. is, I believe, your 10 a.m. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
And so for us, we're normally the ones doing the day drinking. So for us to have an evening dram of Backwoods and to welcome you in the morning means we are doing the day drinking that we had promised each other. So thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Great to see you guys.
Yeah, likewise. It's I think when we first started talking with you, the distillery that you currently have behind you is not the distillery you had at the time.
Yeah,
like
that's
your
right.
Your expansion has really expanded. Could you talk about that a little bit? I mean, I want to be talking about not just our rye, but your whiskeys in general. But I think if you can give our listeners some history on your first distillery and then the expansion and where you are today, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, I was just reminded then of the first time I actually encountered the podcast, and I was driving down to a place called Healesville to collect our first mash tun, and I was looking, I was thinking, it's a 3-hour drive, and I thought, I want to listen to a whiskey podcast, and I did some searching, and YouTube popped up, and I reckon you were maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 episodes into your first season then, and I just binged the whole thing on the drive and just loved it, and I thought these guys are good. Instantly kind of felt like I knew you guys. It was like you're in the car with me puffing, and
sounds a bit creepy. But then I think he messaged you, and he came home and he's like, the guys from the podcast actually wrote back to me. Like, I think we're friends.
That's awesome.
Well, let's lay it to rest. We are officially friends. That is on the record now. We are friends.
Yeah, and so from there we so the mash tun come back to our little shed next to our house, which was only sort of 72 square meters, and we started the distillery there. We ordered Sylvester Stallone. He's our 1,250 litre copper pot still. He was installed, and then we both kept our day jobs for the first sort of 3 or 4 years of the distillery. Yeah. I was teaching, and Bree was working at a university, and we made whiskey on the weekends. And so then sort of, we all know what happened in 2019, that kind of COVID thing, and kind of slowed us down a little bit. We kind of stayed in our day jobs to be safe. And then in 2020, we thought, this thing's over. Let's throw it in the...
No, you're like a year behind.
Am I?
Yes. Yeah, so it was January 2020. We took the keys over for this place behind us.
Yeah.
And then everything hit in Australia a couple of months after. So then we went into our lockdowns and everything. So we kept this space was empty for that year. And we kept the day jobs for that extra year. And at the end of 2020, you taught your last class ever at high school. And you thought, if we're going to make a go of it, we've just got to do it. And it's a crazy time to do it, but I'm going to leave teaching and we thought we need to make more. So we'll get Leigh out of his job first. He can start full-time production. We need to fill more barrels. We'll have our very first whiskies ready in the middle of 2020. And even though we couldn't kind of travel the country launching our first whiskies, we had an amazing whiskey bar in Melbourne that had actually managed to visit before the lockdowns and helped us choose our first releases.
Wow.
And whiskey,
nice.
They're called Whisky and Ailment, and they are like the best whiskey bar in the country. And we just formed a really great relationship with them, and they actually did a virtual launch on our first releases in sort of the middle of the pandemic lockdowns, and it went gangbusters because everyone was at home online, and we actually managed to reach a lot more people than we ever could have probably.
Wow.
Because of the state of the world. It was kind of like a silver lining for us in a way, if you want to look at it that way. So from our little table in Yackandandah, our little town of 900 people, we managed to have like a virtual launch with at least 100 people from around the country, which is more than they could fit in their little whiskey bar at the time. And we sold out of those whiskies in that 24 hours. So it was kind of a crazy time. Yeah. And then we finally got the doors opened here in 2021.
And so that leads into my very next question then, which is, all of us are talking about pre-pandemic numbers, pandemic numbers, and post-pandemic numbers. Have you been able to ride the wave going from that kind of virtual experience into this physical space that you've got?
Yeah, like it's been tricky, I guess. So we had that kind of the online sort of success in the first 6 months. We had our first whiskey releases. They sold out in the 24 hours, and then we had no more whiskey. So the next cask, we emptied that and bottled that a couple of months later, and that one sold out in like half an hour. Like that was a really small release. And then we had no more whiskey. And then,
with no beer.
Rinse and repeat.
In hindsight, if we had have opened at that time, we wouldn't have had enough whiskey to really get a good momentum happening in our venue. So
gotcha.
It's all weirdly worked out well. So when we did open up, people were traveling locally. You couldn't really go overseas yet. So a lot of people were coming up to our region, which is renowned for its wineries, breweries, and now distilleries. And we're 3 hours from Melbourne, maybe 5-hour drive from Sydney. So it's like it's a driving holiday for people. So we had a really bumper year in that 2022 when everyone started moving around again. And then, so that was really good.
They were spending their money on traveling rather than whiskey.
And they were filling their cars with local products. So that was a really bumper year. A lot of our friends that have like wineries, cellar doors, and breweries said the same thing. Like they have some pre-pandemic numbers, and they said it was a real good year for tourism that year. And then in 2023, everyone went back overseas again. So then it really slowed down again. So I don't know if that's normal. We haven't had normal yet because now we're in an economic downturn.
Yeah.
So now we're riding that wave.
So normal seems to be the unexpected.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going good now. Like we've got a really, although our cellar doors are a little bit more quiet, we've had a lot of other things going on and other channels we're sort of moving product through. So we've actually been really good. We feel pretty okay at the moment.
Yeah, nice. We're lucky in that we got that online following to start off with, and people are really loyal once they find a brand that they love, and people will travel up to the distillery when they can, or and always buy like everything we put out online. So we're very lucky in that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw too that you recently won. You're a 2024 category winner with your whiskeys, and does that help your sales at
Yeah.
all? Does that bring more eyeballs and more taste buds to your whiskeys?
Yeah. So we entered 2 awards per year. So that's our international award that we enter, the World Whiskies. And that one's a really good one for sales for us. Like people
Yeah.
really impressed by those ones, and we've managed to win a
It's
good
just that,
medal
it's
every
just that
year.
word in it, like
Yeah.
world. They go, you're the what? You're the best in the world. What?
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Maybe.
You have to buy
Yeah.
6 bottles now. Yeah, so that one is a really good one, and I think because we've won some good medals at that each year, like we won the category in 2022 for the Shiraz Cask Rye, so that one seems to be the the award winner, and then we do an Australian awards, so our Australian Distilled Spirits Awards, we enter those as well.
Okay.
So we've won some good medals at that one as well.
So speaking about that Batch 4 Shiraz Award winner, obviously we've been talking over here about Australian heritage rye that makes up so much of that mash bill. And I'm curious, when you were getting into this endeavor and you were starting to put together a mash bill, how did that heritage rye even come before your eyes? I think that's kind of fascinating. Could you tell us more of that?
Yeah, it is a cool story. So we, from early on, we sort of formed this really strong relationship with a malt house that's about a sort of 2-3 hour drive from here. And they, I guess they're into kind of alternative sort of brewing grains and grains for distilleries. So like, I guess part of the reason we got into this, we've always been interested in, I guess, trying to create uniquely Australian whiskies and thinking about ways that we can do that. So we were kind of instantly attracted to Voyager Craft Malt because that's what they were doing. So yeah, sort of met like Stu, one of the owners there. He really similar story to me. He used to be a school teacher, and we both kind of got out at the same time, and so we've become really good mates. But early on, he sort of said, "Oh, well, I've got this rye grain. You could give it a go. I don't know though." And he sort of told me the story of it. He said it was actually, and I know you guys know this story, but for the listeners, that it was actually growing wild. It was a rye that sort of became a hybrid of sort of 3 or 4 other ryes that were sort of used commercially between sort of 60 to 80 years ago, and they were replaced by higher yielding crops. And that's happened with a lot of brewing crops. You know, like to get, I guess, barley or rye to a grade where it can actually be malted. It's difficult. So, and doing it with these heirloom grains is even more difficult to get the right, the right starch and protein contents within the grains. It's really challenging. So they managed to get this rye to that kind of point. And he said, "I've got a little bit of it. Do you want to give it a go?" So I said, "Sure." I'd tried a couple of other ryes. Had good results. I liked what was coming out. But
more commercial ryes. Yes.
So more commercial ryes, things that were readily available and. Sort of those high yielding kind of ryes. So, if you compare the sort of more commercial ryes to the rye that we use, it's probably our rye is only sometimes a third of the size of these sort of more commercial ryes.
Yep.
So he was worried about that because it makes it obviously really hard to mill and it makes it really hard to process. But we kind of persisted and got there. And it was really just with that, once we sort of, I guess, got the distillate and tasted it and compared it to the others, it blew my mind. It was just really unique and really different. Also that it's malted as well. I really enjoyed that because I hadn't had a lot of malted rye, and I thought this is an area where I guess in Australia people aren't really playing in. I think we've got an amazing grain, but also malting it, and then the flavors we were getting, it just tasted uniquely Australian. It had this earthiness to the rye that I'd never ever tasted before. It was the rye picked us is the answer.
Well, it sounds very romantic when you put it like that. And so that kind of the follow up for me on that one is, so when you add in the chocolate malt and you get these wonderful chocolatey notes, and then you go with the Shiraz cask, whether recharred or not, and you get those kind of warm berry notes, sometimes cherry to my palate. What is the rye bringing to that? What is it? I know you're talking earthy, and definitely there's an earthiness in here. We even talk a little bit about like fresh balsa wood kind of going on in there to the nose.
Yeah.
What else is going on in that rye?
Yeah, it's like, I guess it's really interesting the way that the rye responds to French oak or to American oak, and that, which is great with the two releases we've done with you guys, in that the first one was full French oak maturation, whereas the new bottling is American oak first and then finished in French oak. So yeah, I think it's a really good example of what the different woods do, and I reckon Jason's spot on. Like you sort of find in the French oak that the rye responds. It just, so with that little bit of chocolate malt, it really accentuates it. It really comes out.
While you're nerding out on that, I'm going to get us a whiskey.
Yes,
day drinking,
Bree
in Australia.
So yeah, I guess you sort of get this really kind of, it's almost like the middle of the whiskey. It's really chocolatey and really fills your mouth with those chocolatey kind of flavors. Whereas
we're just loving the fact that we can just
look
see
at her.
Bree right behind you.
She's
like,
rummaging.
So cool. So cool. So sorry, continually.
Yeah, and then I guess comparing that was interesting. So when we did the first casks for the second whiskey, which was the American oak, originally the chocolate wasn't as prominent. You know, it was really until it went into the French oak that it really started to emerge. So you know, again, when it goes, so even with the chocolate malt in the mash bill in American oak, it doesn't really translate. It's all that chocolatey. What I found, I guess the original reason we actually added the chocolate malt in there on the distillate, on the new make, we found that the finish was just a little bit short, sharp, and dry, which you know kind of can be common in a rye. So adding the chocolate malt, it just helped it to stick around in the mouth a little bit more, and it added to the finish. But you know, that was the distillate and the new make. But then I guess the added bonus when that goes into French oak, they kind of just sung together, and it made it really chocolatey. In the American oak, it's much more subtle, and the chocolate notes don't come out as much. So I think the suggestion from you guys to finish this whiskey in the French oak, I think was a fantastic idea, because we get the combination of the two.
Even a blind squirrel can find an acorn every now and again.
Can I ask one more follow-up?
Yeah, please.
Just I'm kind of going down the whole line here, and so right on the cast here. So the cast that we got from cast number 14, this original,
yes,
was I know you're in liters, we're in gallons. Let's call the whole thing off. But it was bigger. It was like a full size, right? And then the two American oaks that you had were 30 gallons or thereabouts. I think 100 liters in your language. And so we were able to combine both of those. So it was cast 16 and 23 went into cast 14 as a finishing vessel. So my question is, what were you hoping for when you were using the 100-liter casks?
So the 100-liter casks were American oak, and they were Shiraz as well. I was kind of, I guess I wanted to see, you know, I guess sort of even tracking right back to sort of the Backwoods way of doing things. What we've tried to do is throw the net really wide. So we didn't come in and say, okay, these are going to be our core range products. We decided to explore and really try and find, I guess, learn about the way our spirit worked in different barrels. And we didn't want to make any calls on any of it on core range until we had the data and we could see how our barrels behave in our environment. So it's kind of those two casks, 16 and 23, were kind of a part of that. We wanted to know how our spirit worked. You know, that they were early casks. That was you know, that was literally number 16 and number 23 that we filled.
Literally number 16 and 23. Okay,
the clues in the number.
So the idea, we were learning. Like we had this hunch that, you know, our rye would work in Shiraz casks, and early on the signs were great. We knew there'd be some differences between the French and American oak. we can't, you can assume what they are, but you don't know exactly what you're going to get until
I feel like
mature.
you chose your favorite whiskey, which is rye, and your favorite wine, which is Shiraz, and you just wanted to pair them together.
Like, these have got to work.
Yeah.
I sort of felt like I'd found the most Aussie rye that I possibly could, and again, trying to sort of create those uniquely Australian flavors using using Shiraz just seemed to make sense. Australian wine. Yeah.
But in terms of have you stuck with 30s? Do you have a selection of those? Have you gone with larger? Do you need to plug in your laptop? Okay, we're going live.
We're getting a distillery tour. This is what I was hoping for.
Look at what they were looking at across the viewers. That's beautiful.
Look at that. Oh, I love that. What a great room.
No, the sun was, we're good. We're good.
Okay. So, sorry, back to you. So about the 30 gallons. So we did that early on. And again, part of learning. And we're no longer filling any small casks. We only fill, barrel 200 litres and hogsheads 300 litres. We've had really good results with the 30 gallons, but they're really hard to manage. So, as we come into the warm seasons, like it's a crazy time for me because I'm just frantically tasting all the small barrels and going, you're getting too close to being over oak. You're out of there, kid. And just sort of, so it's nice. Like this, a lot of our 30 gallon now are second fill barrels and they behave much better.
Yeah.
Life is a fair bit easier now, but smaller barrels are either second fills or large format. So we're not going to dabble in small casks anymore.
No, that checks out. All right, Josh, I stepped on your toes earlier. I will give you the floor.
Well,
I'm going to get that tape.
Yeah. Sorry, just doing a little jig of the thing.
little jiggery pokery there.
Yeah, sorry.
No worries. We're just having a nosy around as you keep changing camera angles. That's over there, okay, and that's over there.
This is our little gin garden behind us. So people come out here and have a G&T, and we grow some of the botanicals, and so it's a nice little place for a drink.
It's a hard knock life.
So one of the things that I wanted to say is specifically about this rye, and it's really perfect timing because Aileen, who's Redhead Whiskey, watching us, I was doing a tasting with her in her group in New York, and it was some Scotch whiskeys. There was a rum, and I had just gotten my bottle of Backwoods rye, and so I said, "Perfect. These will be the first people that I pour this for." And if I remember correctly, I covered the label, and I didn't really want to show people what it was, or maybe I hinted around but didn't give the full story. And as I start explaining it, and then finally say, this is rye whiskey, there was someone, and I think that her name was Yael. I could be wrong, but there was a person there, and she just said, "This is not rye how I know rye."
Yeah.
And I just absolutely loved that it's so. Here in the U.S., we have MGP, which is 95% rye, 5% malted barley, and has a very specific flavor profile. And almost everybody uses it or tries to mimic it, right? That's how ubiquitous it is. And then to show this side of rye, it takes people out of left field, or it comes out of left field. And it does exactly what we always hope to do with people is surprise them, show them something new, show them flavors they haven't had before. So with that in mind, I wonder, have you had people come to you having previous knowledge of just American ryes, and then they taste yours? I wonder if you could share some stories there.
Yeah, we definitely do. And I think that's been the exciting thing for us, having a rye that, surprises people. So we get people come in and we try and have 3 or 4 whiskeys on offer for them to taste, and they'll be like, I just want to try the single malts. I only drink single malt. I don't like rye. I've never liked rye. It's like, well, you're here. rye is really our thing, and it'd be good if you tried it. Yeah, and then they'll try it, and I'll go, oh, it's so sweet, it's so chocolatey, it's so, creamy, it's not what I expected, it's not what I've had before. I'm going to take a bottle of that home. So yeah, we get a lot of like really staunch single malt drinkers that it'll be their first bottle of rye that they've purchased, which is it's always really a thrill for us, because getting someone to try something new and love it and want to take it home, like that's just that's why we do it.
It's good on our tasting paddles here at the distillery. We put it on there and they have to have it, so we make them have it, which is great. But we get because a lot of the time people wouldn't even try it. If they're given the opportunity, they go, "Oh no, I'll just have all single malts, please." So to make them have it, there's always one on there. It gets really good results. People are always surprised and say, "That's not what I thought." And and I guess one way we kind of I guess one of the selling points to single malt drinkers, we kind of say to them that it's kind of a gateway rye. Like it's a rye that is kind of designed for single malt drinkers. Like it's not because it is malted. That kind of prickle is that you get sometimes in a rye is much more subtle. There's barley in there, there's wheat in there. The wheat even makes it more mellow. It's a great way. It's a great way to start getting into rye whiskey. So that's the way we kind of sell it to people. Who go, oh, no rye for me, and they go, just have a go at this. It's very satisfying when you see someone come into the distillery and say, I don't like rye, and they leave with a bottle. It's like a big win.
There is a lot of educating though, because I think most people walk in and when they hear rye, they go, oh, so that's a bourbon, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
and
that's
so,
interesting.
No, that's so people have just like grouped bourbon and rye together as like American style. That must be the same. So a lot of times people will try it thinking it's going to taste like bourbon.
Oh,
so we're doing
so
a lot
interesting.
of educating in what a bourbon is as well.
As in, it can't be made in Australia.
It's not made from rye grain, and So,
just all this talk of people leaving the distillery with a bottle. I was just checking my own here, and so this is batch 1, rye batch 1.
One, nice.
That may have come through Michael Nolan.
Cool. It may have come through Michael.
I saw Michael and Bonnie are on. They said hi. So hi to those guys. They spoiled me on my visit to Chicago last year. Joshua hooked me up, and I got to have dinner with them. And we did a tasting, and it was fantastic.
I only connect you with the best people, Leigh. And that's what I tell them too. So
it was such a good night. It was great. It was great to meet some nation members. We've had so much great support, and to actually to be there with a group of nation members was bloody awesome.
I'm bummed I couldn't see you for myself on this side of the equator, but next time.
Definitely. We're I'm secretly plotting a trip back. He doesn't know about it yet.
When and where we'll be there.
We'll take that offline. No. I thought we were bringing Joshua and Jason to us.
Yes, and that is on. For sure.
We need to get you guys into Yackandandah.
So eager for that as well. So eager. This is my third pour of this in the time we've been talking. But what did you go and put in your glasses?
Well, I put in, because we forgot to bring our bottle into the distillery this morning, which was a huge fail, but I was getting kids to school and all of that. So we've got our rye from the Shiraz cask. So our batch 10.
Beauty.
Batch 10. So is the goal to continue with the batches, or to ultimately turn it into a core that is slightly more predictable?
So we want to do both, I guess. So we're kind of figuring out what will be core for our single malt and what will be a core for our rye offering that we can just continue to offer people. So the rye in Shiraz casks is definitely a popular one. So we will aim to have that one as core very soon. And then our single malt that was matured in corn whiskey casks has been a really popular one. So that one.
Interesting.
So that's like a bourbon style cask, but it's made in a corn whiskey that's made in Australia.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a distillery over in Perth that make a corn whiskey, and when they're finished with their barrels, then they send them over to us, and we fill them with our rye and our single malts.
Yeah,
All right.
It kind of works like with our barrel program. We try and only get barrels that have had Australian products in them prior. So
Gotcha.
rather than importing bourbon barrels, we get the barrels through them.
Yeah.
Which have been great. We've had some real success with those whiskies too that have been in those corn whiskey barrels. So,
and along with those, then we'll have our sort of special reserve releases, so our smaller batch stuff still, because we think that people will want both options.
Sure.
They want limited releases as well as a consistent whiskey.
We kind of find, bars want to be able to reorder things, and consumers our customers, they like different stuff. So yeah.
And we've got some cool casks, like Chardonnay casks and Muscat casks, sherry, and you've got an ex-Lafroig cask. We've got there's a few, and then our red gum whiskies. Red gum
Bree, don't bring up the red gum whiskey. That's cask 53 is no more.
We each have a 53 tattooed just under our arm.
Never forget.
It's been refilled. It's got your name on it.
It was just our way of keeping you around. We're just stringing out the relationship, so you don't.
Keep the mean, keep the keen, right?
Yeah, this isn't how friends treat each other, Leigh. This isn't what friends do to each other.
So listen, we're actually a little over the half hour mark, and we've sort of committed ourselves to sort of sticking to the half hour. But before we do, if there's anything that you wanted to mention, we didn't even get a chance to talk about your single malt. Yeah. Which I think is a shame here. But if there's anything else that you wanted to mention to our listeners before we get at our viewers, I should say, so used to doing a podcast. Please, let's talk about that now before we hop on out.
There's probably one thing I can mention, but this is probably for the Australian viewers. So
Ian Bruce is going to love this.
Yeah, we did keep we did keep a bottle. And we thought
of the single cask nation.
Yes, of the new release.
This one, yeah.
Yes,
thank you.
Hey, all right.
And then we sort of thought about, because a lot of people ask us, "Hey, how do I get my hands on that single cask nation stuff?" And we're like,
"You can."
Yeah. So we actually ended up giving the bottle to our favourite whiskey bar, Whisky and Ailment, and they're pouring drams of it there because people are really interested in what you guys have picked. And so if anyone wants to,
single malt whiskey society bar, aren't they?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Scotch malt. Scotch malt.
Yeah, they're one of their official partners in Melbourne.
So they host a lot of the events, and they have the library of whiskies and
so they've got it. So if anyone any Australian viewers really want to head to Whisky and Ailment, they have a bottle. You've got to do 2 winks and scratch your nose, and you're going to get some. But also, I just want to say thanks, to I guess nation members that buy our booze. It is really for us. We pinch ourselves when we think about our whiskey being enjoyed over in the States, which really to us is kind of, in a lot of ways, it's the home of whiskey. A lot of American whiskey is drank in our country, and we kind of feel like we're selling ice to Eskimos. It's amazing to think that our whiskies are being enjoyed there. So we're really grateful for the partnership with you guys. We just love it, and thank you for facilitating us in getting our whiskey on lips in the US. It means so much.
Even if it's not a great business decision.
Yeah.
For everybody.
None of us are getting rich out of it. Anyway.
We know you're not doing it for the money, that's for sure.
For the love of whiskey, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, long may that relationship continue. We'll continue shouting Backwoods to the roofs. Just before we leave, for our listeners, if you didn't see the link here, there are still some bottles remaining, so you'll see that bit.ly link there. It's on the YouTube page that you're watching live as well, and it's on the Single Cask Nation Facebook page. Speaking of YouTube, Jason, what do I tell our viewers every time we do one of these videos.
I'm going to leave them hanging for 1 second because I'm going to say, with all those kind words coming from down there,
Yeah.
this isn't a charity, right? This is amazing whiskey.
It's amazing.
And we bring in amazing whiskey from you. So thank you for collaborating with us. With that said, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and make Old Man Hatton very happy this day. Ring the bell, he says. Ring the bell.
Ring the bell. Then get notified, right?
God, kids, so terrible.
So viewers, Leigh, Bree, thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful. I love that you've joined in from tomorrow, which is fantastic.
Yes, and we did a tasting at the exact same time yesterday. So we're in two places at once in a way.
Fantastic.
It's so weird. Yeah.
Joshua needs more rye.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Cheers, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Cheers, viewers. Cheers, Leigh and Bree.
Thanks, guys.